Hi, today I'm going to read for you Tony's Bread by Tomie dePaola. Once, a long time ago, in a small village outside the grand city of Milano, there lived a baker named Antonio, but everyone called him Tony. Tony made bread, and only bread in his bakery. It was good and simple, and the villagers loved it. But Tony had a dream. One day, he would have a bakery of his own in Milano and become the most famous baker in all of northern Italy. Now, Tony lived with his only daughter, Serafina. He was a widower, and he had raised Serafina from the time she was un piccolo bambino, a little girl, and now he has spoiled her. Antonio treats Serafina like una principessa, a princess, said Zia Clotilda. The finest clothes, the finest jewelry, anything her heart desired, said Zia Caterina. She never had to lift a finger. All she does is sit, looking out the window, eating dolce, sweets, said Zia Claudina. Now that she is old enough to marry, Tony thinks that no man is good enough for his Serafina, the three sisters whispered to each other. That was true. Tony did think that no man was worthy of his darling daughter. He would not even talk to the young men in the village who wanted to court Serafina. So poor Serafina would sit at the window behind the curtains, eating her dolce and crying. One day, Angelo, a wealthy nobleman from Milano, was passing through the village. As he went by Tony's house, the wind blew the curtains away from the window, and there sat Serafina. Angelo and Serafina looked into each other's eyes, and it was love at first sight for the both of them. The three sisters were standing nearby. Dear ladies, Angelo asked them, who was that lovely creature sitting at the window? Che bella donna, what a beautiful woman. Is she married or spoken for? Ah, young signore, said Zia Clotilda, that is Serafina, the daughter of Tony the baker. No, she is not married, and not likely to be for a long time, said Zia Caterina. No one is good enough for Tony's little Serafina, Zia Claudina explained. Well, we'll see about that, said Angelo. Now, aunties, tell me all you can about her. The young nobleman and the three sisters sat and talked and talked and talked, and long before, Angelo knew all about Serafina and Tony the baker. And he knew all about Tony's dream about becoming the most famous baker in all of northern Italy. Grazie, aunties. Thank you, said Angelo. I think I have a plan that will give Tony his dream and give me the wife of my dreams, but I will need your help. This is what I want you to do. The next day, a letter arrived at the bakery for Tony. Dear Signore Baker, I am Angelo, a nobleman from Milano. I was passing through the village and was lucky enough to taste your fine bread. Would you be so kind as to meet me in front of the church after Mass on Sunday so we may talk? I have a proposal to make for you. Angelo de Milano. And a secret letter arrived at Tony's house for Serafina. Dear Bella Serafina, I saw you at your window and I love you. Here's a ring to keep as a symbol of my adoration. It will not be long before we are husband and wife. Angelo, your true love. And Zia Clotilda, Zia Caterina, and Zia Clorinda did their part. Oh, Tony, did you see that rich young man from Milano? Zia Clotilda asked. He wanted to know all about you. He just loved your bread, Zia Caterina said. Nothing like it in Milano, he said. Zia Clorinda told Tony. Why, I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to meet you, the way he went on. Well, dear ladies, funny you should say that, because he does want to meet me after Mass on Sunday, said Tony. His name is Angelo de Milano. Imagine that, the three women exclaimed. Che bella fortuna, what good luck for you. And for Serafina, they whispered to each other. And so, Signor Antonio, I would be most pleased if you and your lovely daughter would come to Milano as my guests, Angelo said. And if you like our city, I would be proud to set you up in a fine bakery of your own near the Piazza del Duomo, the cathedral square. Your fame would be assured, Signor Antonio. I will see to that. Tony couldn't believe his ears. His dream was about to come true. Why, thank you, Signor Angelo, but please call me Tony. All my friends do. Also, Signor Tony, Angelo continued, the advantages for your beautiful daughter would be great. I admit I would not find it unpleasant for Serafina to sit beside me at my great table as my wife, the daughter of Tomie, the most famous baker in all of Milano. That did it, Tomie agreed, and off he and Serafina went with Angelo. Together they walked all the small streets around the cathedral square and visited all the bakeries and pastry shops. They tasted torta, which is cake, and biscotti, cookies, and pan, bread, and Tomie was depressed. The bread alone was nothing like Tomie had ever tasted. Bread made out of the finest, whitest flour, bread shaped like pinwheels, bread with seeds and all sorts scattered on top. It's no use, Signor Angelo, said very sad Tomie. I could never compete with all of these fine bakeries and pastry shops. All I could make is bread, and very simple bread at that. I would be the laughingstock of Milano. It is better if Serafina and I just go home. No, never, Angelo shouted. Oh, Papa, no, Serafina cried. Not only was she in love with Angelo, but she was looking forward to living in that grand house with all of those good things to eat. If only you could make bread that tasted as good and sweet as this candied fruit and these raisins, Serafina said. Or, Angelo said, getting another idea, as rich and sweet as this cup of punch made from milk and eggs and honey. Milk, eggs, honey, Tomie said, thinking out loud. Candied fruit, Serafina said. Raisins, Angelo chimed in. That's it. All three shouted. I shall make the richest, lightest, most wonderful bread anyone has ever tasted. Out of the whitest flour, the biggest eggs, the creamiest milk, the sweetest candied fruit, and the plumpest raisins, Tomie shouted. Oh, Papa, Serafina cried, kissing her father. Servants, Angelo cried, and he sent them off to buy all the fine ingredients that Tomie would need. The next morning, Tomie, Serafina, and all the supplies headed back to the little village, and Tomie began to work. Day after day, he experimented until he had mixed the lightest, richest dough with as many raisins and as much candied fruit as he could put into it. Now he was ready to bake. He sent word to Angelo in Milano that he would come to the bakery the next afternoon. Then he set the dough out in large bowls and went to bed. As Tomie slept, the dough began to rise and rise and rise. The next morning, he filled every pan in his shop. One piece of dough was left over, so he threw it into a flour pot and baked it too. When Angelo arrived, the bread was just coming out of the oven. Everyone held his breath and waited until Tomie cut a slice of his new bread. Angelo tasted it, Serafina tasted it, Tomie tasted it, Zia Clotilda, Zia Caterina, and Zia Clorinda all tasted it. That's it, they shouted. I'll take these loaves back to Milano to see what my friends say, Angelo said, and off he went. In just a few days, a letter in a large cart filled with ingredients arrived to the village. Dear Tomie, here are more supplies. Make as much bread as you can and send it to me. Then, when I send for you, I promise you will enter Milano with flags flying and Serafina will be mine. Your future son-in-law, Angelo. P.S. Please bake all the loaves in flower pots. My friends like the shape of the loaf the best. Just before Christmas, Angelo sent for Tomie and Serafina. Sure enough, when their coach arrived and entered Milano, crowds were cheering and flags were flying. Benvenuto, Tonio! Welcome, Tomie! The crowds cheered, Benvenuto! The bishop and the mayor were there to greet Tomie and Serafina. And, said the mayor, Milano is so happy to have you here, so we may always have enough of your wonderful bread. The next day, when the bakery door was open, the bishop's guards were called to keep order. All of Milano was there, except for Serafino and Angela, who were being married quietly in a small chapel in the cathedral. All during the wedding, they could hear the crowds cheering, calling for pan di Tonio, Tomie's bread. And to this day, the panettone of Milano is eaten and enjoyed, especially at Christmas. Bravo, Serafino. Bravo, Angelo. Bravo, Tomie. I hope you guys enjoyed the book.